G'day, welcome back to the channel. I am Dan Ruff, and welcome back also to Barcelona for the third round of the first season of the 2021 Nations Cup on Gran Turismo Sport. We are in Super Formula class machines, coinciding with the Spanish Grand Prix. Not sure if that's coincidence or on purpose. I gather it's probably the latter though, given the upcoming Nürburgring races coincide with a 24-hour race. So, you find me in P6 on the grid, so let's take a look at my qualifying lap. So, it took me a little bit to get used to driving the Formula car. I'm not really great with open wheel races. I'm not a huge F1 fan, to be honest. I don't really follow it closely. I mean, I watch the highlights, but that's about it, you know. I'm more into touring cars, and I think Gran Turismo is more suited for that. So races like this are a bit of an anomaly in the game, but oh well. I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one who feels that way though, and isn't used to driving open-wheeled cars, because I mean, this race is anything to go by. A lot of drivers struggled, and you'll see that right from the start. This race is a strange affair. Action-packed first half, but it does settle down towards the end. To some degree, as we come through the chicane of absolute stupid. I mean, oh the god, they should remove that. There's so many better options. This track really isn't a great racetrack. Probably my third least favourite in the game, but I don't know if I was going to rank. But yeah, not conducive to really good racing, and I think that's a complaint that a lot of people have, even in real life in the F1. So we move down the grid, and you're not going to see many, if any, familiar faces in this race, because this is the second attempt that I had at this race. First one was pretty well. The first race curse struck, but more than that, the penalty system struck, and I took a massive SR hit, and I take another massive SR hit in this race as well. And so what's happened is I've been dropped down into a lobby of drivers with lower SR, and it really does show the difference between S and A with the sportsmanship rating, and I'll talk more about that a bit later, but it really does have an appreciable effect. So we get started off the line, and a couple of drivers forgot to turn traction control on for the standing start, and we'll make our way down, taking the inside line into T1, and it gets very busy through here. Yeah, not great racing, to be honest. There are parts of this track, in fact the majority of this track, where it should be single file, and people just aren't taking any notice of that at all. And we have our first penalty up ahead, and I bump him from behind accidentally. It doesn't really affect him, but I get a penalty. I get a 1 second penalty, the first of many during this race. And really, out of all the penalties I get, I'd have to say that there's only one that comes up much later that was deserved and fair, or maybe two. There was a track limit penalty on the last lap, and at this corner later in the race, there is an incident which nets me a penalty, which was my fault. But this one coming up, like, he collides with me coming back on the track, runs himself off, and then I get a 2 second penalty for forcing him off the track. Show me where I forced him off the track. Show me where I forced him off the track. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. The penalty system has really gone backwards really noticeably backwards from where it was only a few weeks ago. So I mean, I talked about this at, during the last race at Fuji, and it really rears its ugly head in this game. And from watching other YouTubers recent races, I'm not the only one who has noticed this issue. So yeah. So I don't know whether it's given me another penalty there or whether it's just reminding me that I have one, but it's flashing up again, although the time hasn't increased. I mean, luckily there are so many penalties and so many drivers net multiple penalties during this race that the penalties don't actually do all that much damage, to my race. As we serve this 2-second penalty, I only lose one position. So yeah, down into 9th from a P6 start. Not a great start to the race, but certainly, yeah. But still better than the first attempt, let me tell you. So we come around the chicane of Stupid onto the main straight to start lap 3, which was my fastest lap of the race. I do prefer my fastest laps to be later on in the race, but hey, there you go. So into cockpit view now, and the reason I'm so upset about the penalty system being the way it is because I'm really precious about my sportsmanship rating. I mean, my driver rating, I feel, kind of takes care of itself. You do well, you go up. You have a poor race, you go down. It's based on results, and that's fine. It looks after itself, and and puts you in lobbies at your level, and that's great. But the sportsmanship rating is the one that you really have to nurture. It's the one that you really have to take care of, because as you can see from this race, being in a lobby where the sportsmanship rating is only a few points down from maximum, there's a big difference in the way people are, the way people are driving. I like to race clean. And I expect others to race clean. Now, look, I'm not a perfect driver. I make mistakes, but I, try my best not to make mistakes that affect other people, and I certainly avoid as much as possible doing things deliberately. And if that means backing off when I have an opportunity, if it's going to harm another racer, I'll back off. But because I like to keep my sportsmanship rating high, because if your sportsmanship rating is maxed out, you get better quality racing. Even down here in the clubman class, you get better quality racing if you have a high sportsmanship rating, and because you don't have people. You have fewer people doing deliberately dirty things. So as we begin lap 4, I've managed to pass In World's Haste for P7, and now I start to reel in who I thought was P5, but as I look up ahead, I'm in P7. That is P15. That is the back marker. We're only on lap 4, and I've already lapped, or am about to lap, last place. So that's crazy. I mean, how much of a disaster did this guy have to the start of his race to be so far back, so early on? So come around that hairpin, which no longer exists apparently, since the track update before the Spanish GP. I don't know whether they're going to bother updating that in the game, or whether they're just going to wait for Gran Turismo 7 to do that, but this chicane. So 1:31.1 for my fastest lap is about a second and a half down from my best lap in free practice. Actually, it's a little bit more than that. I think it was, no, it was a 1:28 was my best. So, yeah, think it was a 128.8 or a 128.6. It was a round number anyway. Yeah, track limit penalty from the chicane of stupid, as is tradition. So we'll flash forward to coming up to the end of lap 7, and I've caught up to the battle for P3, and at this point I think I made a really poor judgment call. I made you see, I meant to pit at the end of lap 8, I think, so I've come into the pits a lap earlier than I wanted to, I guess, or meant to. And I can't help but feeling if I'd stayed out for one more lap, I possibly could have caught up, and with P4 or even P3, and gained, gained some on them. But yeah, I mean, we'll never know. Maybe not. Maybe it was completely inconsequential. But not much happens. We'll flash forward now to the end of, or midway through, lap 12, and this is. I put my hands up, that was my fault. I outbraked myself, so I slowed down to let him back on. Didn't want to take the position off him like that, but I still get a 1 second penalty. Turns out to be academic anyway, as he runs really wide and goes off, so I get the position anyway. And, yeah. So onto the final lap now, and yeah, I've got a 1 second penalty to serve still, and yeah, I honestly, to put it bluntly, I wasn't spanked this much as a kid. As this is really, yeah, and I was happy with where I end up. To end up on P6. I started on P6, I ended on P6. It wasn't a bad result, all things considered, but it was still really frustrating to have to deal with, the penalty system being the way it is, in cars that are very twitchy, very, very responsive, but I guess overly responsive to some degree. They're not forgiving, and this track isn't forgiving either. So, if you're not perfect, there's no leniency, and the penalty system just seems to be completely wrecked. So yeah, it just, they've gone to zero tolerance, and I don't think that's healthy. I don't think it's good for the game, and I don't think it promotes good races, and it really does put a put a wet blanket on the whole thing. So P6 finish, ended where I started. I'll take it. It's a top 10, and it's considering the first attempt at this race, and considering how unfamiliar I am with these cars, not a bad one. So yay, glad it's over though. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed that, please leave a like or comment below to let me know how you did in the race. Next up is the fourth round of the first season of the 2021 Manufacturer Series. We're in Group 3 again at the legendary Le Mans in France. So make sure to subscribe so you don't miss that. I'm Dan Raff, and I'll see you at the next race.